A single streetlight flickered at the edge of the highway, its weak yellow glow barely cutting through the darkness. Beyond it stretched miles of empty land, dust, fences, and the low whisper of wind moving through dry grass. No cars, no houses, just silence. She hugged her backpack tighter against her chest and kept walking. Her name was Lily, though tonight it felt like even her name had been left behind. She had been running for hours, maybe longer. Time had blurred into footsteps and breath, into the dull ache in her legs and the burning in her lungs. She didn't look back. Looking back meant remembering the shouting, the slammed door, the words that cut deeper than fists ever could. You're useless. You don't belong here. So she ran. Her sneakers were worn thin, soles slapping softly against the asphalt. Every sound made her flinch, the rustle of wind, the snap of gravel beneath her feet. She was 16, alone, and carrying everything she owned on her back. Inside the backpack, a half-empty water bottle, a cracked phone with no signal, an old hoodie that still smelled faintly like home, a home she couldn't return to. Her stomach growled painfully. She hadn't eaten since morning. Fear had killed her appetite then, now hunger clawed at her relentlessly. She slowed near the streetlight, resting her hands on her knees, trying to catch her breath. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Crying felt like weakness, and she had already used up all the weakness she could afford. Just keep moving, she told herself. Morning will come. That's when she heard it. Hoofbeats. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She straightened instantly, spinning around. The sound grew louder, echoing unnaturally in the quiet night. Out of the darkness, a shape emerged. Huge. A horse. Tall, muscular, dark as the night itself. And on its back sat a man so large he seemed unreal, like something pulled from a storybook or a nightmare. A giant cowboy. He wore a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his face, shoulders broad beneath a long coat. His silhouette blocked the streetlight for a moment, plunging everything into deeper darkness before he stepped forward again. Lily's breath caught in her throat. Every warning her mind could produce screamed at once. Run. Hide. Don't trust him. Her feet refused to move. The horse stopped a few steps away, snorting softly. The cowboy remained still, towering above her, his presence heavy but strangely calm. Easy, he said at last. His voice was deep, low and steady, like distant thunder. Not angry, not rushed. She backed up instinctively, fingers curling around the strap of her backpack like it was a lifeline. I don't have anything, she blurted out. I'm not looking for trouble. The cowboy tilted his head slightly, as if studying her. When he leaned forward, the light finally caught his face. He was older than she expected. Late 30s, maybe, a scar cut across one cheek. His eyes were sharp, but not cruel. Tired, perhaps, observant. I'm not here to hurt you, he said. That's what everyone says, Lily snapped, fear sharpening her words. He didn't flinch. Fair enough, he replied. But I'm not everyone. The silence stretched between them. The wind picked up, tugging at her hair, rattling the streetlight above. Her legs trembled now, exhaustion finally catching up to fear. What are you doing out here so late? He asked. She laughed bitterly. Walking. Most people don't choose this road at night. She swallowed. I didn't have many choices. That seemed to land somewhere inside him. His jaw tightened, just slightly. The horse shifted its weight, hooves crunching against gravel. Lily jumped again, heart racing. The cowboy noticed. You're shaking, he said. I'm fine. He studied her, for another moment, then slowly swung down from the horse. When his boots hit the ground, the difference in their size became even more obvious. He was enormous. Tall, solid, unmistakably strong. Yet he stopped several feet away, deliberately keeping his distance. Name's Jack, he said. I own the ranch a few miles from here. She didn't offer her name. Where are you headed, Lily? He asked gently. Her head snapped up. How do you know my name? He nodded toward her backpack. A keychain hung from the zipper, a faded plastic tag with Lily scratched into it. Her shoulders sagged. Away, she said quietly. Anywhere but back. Jack was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke again, voice softer than before. You know, he said, running keeps you alive sometimes. She nodded, tears threatening again. But, he continued, it shouldn't have to keep you alone. She looked at him then, really looked. At the giant cowboy standing under a flickering streetlight, offering nothing but words. And for the first time that night, her fear was matched by something else. Hope. She had no idea that what he would say next, one simple sentence, would change the course of her life forever. The night air carried a sharp chill, but Lily hardly noticed. Her hands were still clutching the straps of her backpack as Jack, the giant cowboy, stood a few feet away, his presence both imposing and strangely reassuring. The desert silence wrapped around them, broken only by the occasional whisper of wind through the tall grass and the distant sound of crickets. You shouldn't be out here alone, Jack said finally, his deep voice echoing slightly in the stillness. It wasn't a question, it was a statement, calm but firm. His eyes, dark and steady beneath the brim of his hat, studied her with an intensity that made her feel both exposed and seen. I have no one, Lily said softly, her voice cracking. She wanted to tear her gaze away, but something in the way he watched her kept her rooted to the spot. And nowhere to go. Jack nodded slowly. That explains a lot. His tone wasn't judgmental. It wasn't condescending. There was understanding there, a quiet acknowledgement of the weight she carried. Most people don't run this far without a reason. Lily swallowed, feeling a lump in her throat. I just can't go back, she whispered. Not tonight. Not ever. He took a careful step closer, the ground crunching beneath his heavy boots. Despite his size, he moved deliberately, carefully, giving her space while closing the gap just enough to make his presence protective rather than threatening. Running doesn't fix things, he said. But it can buy you a little time to think, a little space to breathe. She bit her lip, resisting the urge to break down completely. She had spent months, maybe years, learning to hide her vulnerability. To survive, she had to be careful with her emotions. But tonight, everything had led her to this moment. The fear, the hunger, the loneliness, they weighed heavier than her pride. Jack crouched slightly, bringing his face closer to hers without actually invading her space. The sheer size of him made her heart skip a beat, but there was a gentleness in his eyes that felt foreign in a world that had been anything but kind to her. What's your name? He asked, voice soft but steady. Lily, she admitted, her throat tight. Lily, he repeated, as if tasting the name. It suits you. A faint blush rose to her cheeks, but she quickly looked down at the ground, ashamed at how easily words of kindness unsettled her. Why are you helping me? She asked quietly, suspicion still lurking in her chest. You don't know me. Jack let out a small, rueful laugh, the sound deep and warm. You'd be surprised how little that matters sometimes, he said. I can tell a lot about a person by the way they move, the way they carry themselves. You're scared, yes, but not hopeless. That's rare. Her eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and disbelief. People didn't usually notice her like that. Most ignored her, some mocked her, and a few hurt her. But Jack, this giant cowboy who seemed more like a storybook figure than a real man, was different. He saw her, really saw her. Why me? She whispered. Why now? Jack straightened, brushing imaginary dust from his coat. Because you're here, he said simply. Because sometimes the right place and the right time meet at the same moment. And because if I didn't help, you might not have a tomorrow. The weight of his words sank deep into her chest. She wanted to argue, to say she didn't deserve help, to insist that she could survive alone. But the truth was undeniable. She couldn't. Not tonight. Not without someone who cared enough to step in. I don't know what to say, she admitted, voice trembling. Then don't say anything, Jack replied, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Actions speak louder than words anyway. You need food, warmth, and safety. I can offer you all of that. No questions, no judgments. Lily blinked, tears pricking the corners of her eyes. She had run from so many things, people, homes, expectations, but she had never run toward kindness before. And now it stood before her, embodied in a man whose size alone could have been intimidating, yet whose heart radiated safety. Why would you do that? She asked again, almost inaudibly. Jack glanced up at the sky, the moonlight illuminating the sharp angles of his face. Because once, a long time ago, someone did the same for me. When I had nothing, someone gave me a chance. They gave me hope. I can't let that go without passing it on. She looked at him, taking in the strength and calm in his posture, the genuine concern in his eyes. And for the first time in days, maybe weeks, Lily felt a flicker of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time: trust. I guess I'll go with you," she said quietly. "If you'll have me." Jack nodded once, solemnly, yet there was a faint twinkle in his eyes. "Then let's get you somewhere safe." The wind swept across the plains as Lily followed him, step by cautious step. Behind them, the night seemed less lonely, less threatening. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of hooves echoed softly, like a promise that she wouldn't have to face the darkness alone anymore. The ride to Jack's ranch was quiet, but not uncomfortable. The night had softened into early morning, and the first pale light of dawn stretched across the horizon, painting the desert in shades of gold and lavender. Lily sat on the back of Jack's horse, clutching her backpack against her chest, every muscle tense from exhaustion, fear, and a lingering uncertainty she couldn't shake. Jack rode steadily, his long legs easy against the horse, his silhouette calm and unwavering. He didn't speak unless necessary, letting the rhythmic sound of hooves on the dirt road carry them forward. And in that silence, Lily felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: safety. The ranch appeared suddenly, as if it had grown out of the earth itself. A low, sturdy house with wide porches, wooden fences stretching across open fields, and smoke curling from the chimney. The smell of breakfast, eggs, bacon, and fresh bread, drifted through the air. Lily's stomach growled at the scent, reminding her painfully of how hungry she had been these past hours. Jack guided the horse to the stable, speaking softly to the animal as it settled. "You'll be safe here," he said, then turned to Lily. "Come on." Her legs were stiff and wobbly as she followed him inside. The house was warm, simple, and welcoming, a sharp contrast to the cold, empty streets she had run through. Wooden floors, a crackling fireplace, and the faint scent of herbs and stew filled the space. She hesitated near the door, unsure if she had the right to enter someone else's home. "You can stay as long as you need," Jack said, his voice gentle. "Eat first, then we'll talk." He motioned to a bowl of steaming food already set on the table. Lily stared at it, almost unable to believe someone would offer her a meal without judgment, without expectation. Her hands trembled as she reached for the spoon, taking a small bite. The warmth and flavor exploded in her mouth, a sensation she hadn't remembered in weeks. Tears pricked at her eyes as she ate slowly, savoring every morsel. Jack watched her quietly, his eyes soft but alert. He understood hunger. Not just the kind that gnaws at the stomach, but the kind that steals hope, leaves scars invisible to the world. Once she had eaten, he gestured toward a small room at the back of the house. "You can rest there. There's a bed, blankets, everything you need." Lily's voice caught in her throat. I can't impose on you." "You're not imposing," he said firmly. "Everyone deserves a safe place. You ran here because you needed help. That doesn't make you a burden." She nodded, swallowing hard, finally feeling a small sense of relief. She set her backpack down and approached the bed, the room simple but comfortable. Sunlight filtered through thin curtains, casting warm stripes across the wooden floor. She sank onto the bed, the mattress firm but inviting, and allowed herself to relax for the first time in hours. Jack returned, leaning against the doorway, his expression thoughtful. "Lily," he said, "you can't stay running forever. Fear will only wear you down. But here, you have a choice. You can rebuild. Start over." She looked at him, uncertainty mingling with hope. "Start over." "Yes," he replied. "Work on the ranch, learn, rest, heal. You don't have to do it alone anymore." For the first time, Lily considered it. She had spent so long thinking she could only survive by running, by hiding. But Jack's words, his presence, offered something different, a future she hadn't allowed herself to imagine. Days passed. She learned the rhythm of the ranch, the smell of fresh hay, the sound of horses in the morning, the satisfaction of small, honest work. Jack treated her with respect and patience, never pushing, never judging. She began to laugh again, small bursts at first, but growing with each passing day. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills, painting the sky in oranges and purples, Lily stood near the fence, watching the fields. Jack approached silently, standing beside her. "You've come a long way," he said softly. "I have," she admitted, smiling faintly. "Because you showed me it was okay to stop running." He nodded. "You didn't just stop running. You chose to trust." They stood in silence for a moment, the wind carrying the scent of the land and the faint aroma of evening fires. "I don't know how to thank you," Lily whispered. "By living," Jack said simply, his eyes meeting hers. "By taking this second chance and making it yours." For the first time in weeks, she felt hope, not the fragile kind she clung to in shadows, but the steady kind that could grow. The fear that had haunted her nights softened, replaced by a quiet strength. And as the stars began to appear, one by one, above the wide desert sky, Lily realized something she hadn't allowed herself to admit: she was finally home.